I feel like it's time for a few more Pastor Carla PSAs. And I've been thinking recently, because so many of us are so anxious to try and get back to quote unquote what is normal, or at least to have some sense that we are doing things that we used to do. And because of that, so many of us are back to more activities, and there even is school classes going on, and there's sports in some places. There's different kinds of larger meetings that are even happening. Even at United in Faith, we have in-person worship that we've started back up with. And during all those things, people ask me questions like, is it safe to go do X? Is it safe to go visit my grandkids? Is it safe to go travel to a friend's house? Is it safe to meet a friend in a forest preserve for a socially distant visit? Is it safe to have one of my friends in my home? And all of these questions are very important questions, and there's not a simple answer. So recently I did a little travel to Newcastle, Pennsylvania, where we buried my grandmother's ashes. My grandmother died back in December, and December of 2019, and we buried her ashes this week in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. And as we were getting together, there's all these questions of what can we do, what can't we do. We sat down for a number of meals together, mostly outdoors or in very large rooms. And we usually sat a bit apart from the other parts of the family. So my husband and my parents and I were all traveling together. So we, during that time, considered ourselves to be in the same bubble. But then there were other family members that were not in the same bubble. And so we tried to stay a little bit separate from them. And we tried to make sure we had our masks on before we were eating and after we were eating. But I really have, in my family is a family of 5. We have 5 people living here in our house. And because of that, we have all these different places that we're active in. So we have 4 of us that are working in public settings. 2 of us in churches, and 2 of us in my household are working in a Starbucks. So they interact with customers and they interact with coworkers. And the 2 of us in churches interact with parishioners, and we interact with visitors, and we interact with coworkers as well. Because of that, we do have a fairly high risk of exposure to COVID-19. We are careful about wearing masks everywhere we can. We are careful about trying to be distant, socially distant, 6 feet away from people whenever we have sort of face-to-face interactions with people. We do still try and just keep our contacts limited, and we limit the number of people that we're around. So even if we get a chance to talk to you, we might spread apart a little bit. I did have a visit with a friend at a forest preserve in Lake County, and we just sat outside the whole time and we talked, and we both had masks on, and then we went for a walk, keeping our masks on and keeping walking together. There are just so many ways that we can be exposed to this virus, and because of that, we just need to be very careful. We need to be very cautious. If you're in a family of 1 or 2 at home, you may have less exposure than my family, where we have 4 people that have very public facing jobs. Some of you may have more exposure because you actually have to go into a much more active workplace than the places that I've been or my husband has been. Whatever you do, whatever you decide, remember that we are doing this on behalf of our neighbors, not just for our own health and safety. It does help us, but we're also doing this on behalf of our neighbors so that we are not causing our neighbors to get the virus, to find themselves in a difficult medical situation. Blessings to you today and in the days ahead.